The early morning hours made no noise, but they offered no rest either. Rafael, 16 years old, Latino, of average height and a slender build, walked down the street like someone trying not to disturb the world. His steps were short, measured. He looked ahead, but paid attention to everything around him. He carried a simple backpack on his back. Inside it, a few carefully folded clothes and a worn school notebook with some pages torn out. It was all he had, and everything he was trying to protect. The cold was not violent, it was persistent. It slowly seeped through his thin clothing, settled into his body, and stayed. Rafael stopped in front of a small grocery store, the kind that still survives on nearly empty streets. The awning offered a bit of shelter from the wind. It was not comfort, it was just less pain. He sat on the ground, pressed the backpack against his chest, and lowered his head. He did not sleep, he simply waited. Waiting had already become a habit. Suddenly, the grocery store door opened forcefully. "Hey!" shouted the owner, a tired man, his voice heavy with suspicion. "What are you doing there?" Rafael slowly lifted his face. "I'm just taking shelter," he said quietly. The man looked him up and down. He did not see a tired boy. He saw a problem. "Get out of here," the owner moved toward him. "I know how this goes. You stay there waiting to steal." Rafael stood up quickly. "I didn't take anything," he said, his voice shaking. "I swear." But the man did not listen. "Thief!" shouted the owner, pointing his finger. "I saw you messing around there." It was not true. Rafael had not touched anything, but the truth at that moment did not seem to matter. The owner ran after him. Rafael ran too, not because he was guilty, but because he had already learned that explaining rarely helped. His heart pounded, his legs ached, the shame burned more than the cold. "Thief!" the voice echoed through the empty street. That was when a car slowed down. Inside it was Clara. She saw the boy running. She saw the man shouting. She saw the fear stamped on the face of someone who was not fleeing from guilt, but from survival. Clara braked, got out of the car. "Hey," she said firmly, "what's going on here?" The grocery store owner arrived out of breath. "This kid was trying to steal from my shop." Rafael stopped. He could not run anymore. "I didn't take anything," he said in almost a whisper. Clara looked at him, then at the man, then at the empty backpack, the trembling hands, the frightened eyes. She took a deep breath. "Do you have any proof?" she asked. The man hesitated. "He was there, just standing around. That already says everything." Clara stepped between them. "It doesn't," she replied. "It only says that he was cold." Silence fell heavily. The owner muttered something, turned his back, and went back into the grocery store, slamming the door. Rafael stood there, not knowing what to do. Clara looked at him carefully, without judgment, without haste. "Are you okay?" she asked. Rafael nodded, even though he was not. At that moment, he did not know it, but that night, which began with fear and accusation, was about to change the course of his story. The classroom was full, but Rafael felt alone. He always sat in the back, near the window. Not by conscious choice, it was almost automatic. From there, he could observe without being observed. His gaze was attentive, but distant. He listened to the teacher. He tried to keep up. He really tried. The problem was not a lack of willingness, it was the accumulation of absences. There were topics he had never seen before, classes he missed while moving from place to place, days when school took a back seat
because survival was more urgent. When the teacher wrote on the board, Rafael copied, but he did not always understand what those words meant together. Sometimes he knew the answer. Sometimes he only thought he did, and when in doubt, he stayed silent. The teacher asked questions. Some students answered quickly. Others complained about the slow pace. "Come on, everyone, this should already be clear," the teacher said, moving on. Rafael felt the content slip through his fingers like water, not because he was stupid, but because no one had stopped to make sure he had learned the beginning. He lowered his head. He did not want to interrupt. He did not want to draw attention. Being noticed for him almost always came with problems. When the class ended, Rafael closed his notebook slowly. The pages held incomplete notes, underlined words without explanation, honest attempts. He let out a deep sigh. That same day, during recess, while others laughed and talked, Rafael leaned near the court, watching. That was when Professor Andre walked by. He did not say anything at that moment, but he noticed something important. Rafael was not disengaged. He was trying to survive in silence within a system that did not wait for him. And for the first time, someone realized that his silence was not disinterest. It was exhaustion. The school court was hot that afternoon. The sun beat down hard on the cracked ground, and the sound of the ball bouncing echoed through the open space. It was physical education class, basketball. Some students played, laughing loudly. Others just wanted the time to pass quickly. Rafael stepped onto the court without hurry. He did not volunteer. He did not complain. He was not the tallest, nor the strongest. He did not draw attention because of his body, but he moved well. While the others ran after the ball, Rafael seemed to know where it would arrive before it got there. He anticipated passes, positioned himself better. He did not fight for the ball. He waited for the right moment. When he received it, he did not hold it too long. He passed quickly, at the exact time. The passes were simple, but precise. They had no flashy effect. They had intention. The game flowed better when he was on the court, even if almost no one noticed that. Almost no one. Professor Andre watched, leaning against the side of the court, whistle hanging from his neck. At first, he watched without expectation, then with attention. He noticed that Rafael did not play on impulse. He played thoughtfully. He did not force plays. He did not seek applause. He made decisions. In a quick play, Rafael stole the ball before the pass even happened. It was not luck. It was reading the game. The teacher frowned, interested. Minutes later, the game ended. Some students celebrated, others complained. Rafael simply took a deep breath and walked off the court, as if it had meant nothing. But it had. Professor Andre approached. "How long have you played like this?" he asked. Rafael shrugged. "I don't know. I've always liked it." "You understand the game," the teacher said calmly. "That's rare." Rafael did not know what to say. He lowered his eyes, not knowing where to place that sentence inside himself. No one had ever said something like that to him. The teacher did not insist. He only added, "If you want to stay after class another day, we can train." Rafael nodded almost imperceptibly. When he left the court, something was different, not in the world, but inside him. It was small, almost invisible, but it was hope. Night had already taken over the residential neighborhood. The houses were lit by warm lights, windows closed, routines protected. Clara drove slowly. The day had been full. Meetings, decisions, responsibilities that allowed no pause. She thought about her children. She thought about the dinner that still needed to happen. She thought about everything that is part of an organized life. As she turned a corner, she saw a bus stop, and on it, a boy sitting. Rafael was there, with his backpack on his lap and his gaze lost on the almost empty street. The clock at the bus stop showed a time when no buses passed anymore. He did not seem to be waiting for transportation. He seemed to be waiting for time to pass. Clara slowed down. She looked in the rearview mirror. She passed by, went a few more meters, but something did not let her go. She stopped the car. She stayed silent for a few seconds, hands resting on the steering wheel. She took a deep breath, turned on the signal, turned back. She stopped near the bus stop. She got out of the car carefully, without hurry, so as not to startle him. "Are you waiting for someone?" she asked, keeping a certain distance. Rafael raised his face. There was tiredness there, and a trained alertness. "No," he answered. Clara observed more closely. The backpack pressed tightly against his body, the cold he was trying to ignore. "You know there are no more buses at this hour, right?" she said in a calm voice. Rafael nodded. "I know." Silence settled in for a few seconds. Clara thought about moving on. She thought about her own obligations. She thought about what would be easier. But ease was not always what stayed. "Do you have somewhere to go?" she asked, carefully. Rafael took time to answer. "I do, more or less." Clara understood what that answer really meant. She looked around, the empty street, the night advancing. She looked at Rafael again. "Would you like a ride?" she said, "at least to get out of the cold." Rafael hesitated. Accepting help always seemed dangerous, but refusing also had its price. "Okay," he replied, softly. Clara opened the car door. In that simple moment, without music, without promise, without speeches, something began to change. Neither of them knew it yet, but that night would not be just another one. The car moved slowly through the nearly empty streets. The light from the street lamps came in and out through the windows, like thoughts that do not settle. Rafael was in the passenger seat, sitting too upright, hands over his backpack as if it were a shield. Clara drove attentively, but did not force conversation. Over the course of her life, she had learned that some people need time before speaking. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was careful. "Where are you going?" Clara asked, without taking her eyes off the road. Rafael took a few seconds. "I'm taking care of some things," he replied. It was not a lie. It was a way of not telling everything. Clara nodded slightly. She understood what he was not saying. She understood that taking care meant enduring. It meant getting through one more night without knowing where to sleep. "All right," she said simply. "If you want, I can drop you somewhere quieter." Rafael looked out the window. The houses went by, families having dinner, televisions on, a world that seemed close but far too distant to touch. "Thank you," he said, almost in a whisper. Clara noticed the way he thanked her, not like someone receiving a small favor, but like someone who was not used to receiving anything at all. She slowed down a little. "Are you cold?" she asked. Rafael nodded. Clara turned up the car's heater without commenting. Small gestures, no difficult questions, no promises. The car continued on, and inside it, two very different worlds began to recognize each other in silence.
The house was quiet when they came in. Clara opened the door and turned on the living room light. A warm, calm light, the kind that makes the night feel less heavy. Rafael walked in slowly, with too much care. He did not look around like someone exploring. He did not touch anything. He did not ask questions. He took only a few steps and stopped, as if waiting for someone to tell him how far he was allowed to go. He chose the smallest possible space to occupy. He stayed near the door, his backpack still on his shoulders. Clara noticed. "Make yourself comfortable," she said, trying to sound natural. Rafael nodded, but did not move. She set her bag on the table, went into the kitchen, and came back with a plate of hot food. The smell spread through the room. "Have something to eat," she said. "You must be hungry." Rafael hesitated for a moment. Then he sat on the edge of the sofa, almost on the very corner. He held the plate with both hands, as if afraid of dropping it or losing it. He ate slowly at first, then a little faster. It was not just hunger, it was relief. "Thank you," he said softly. The word came out heavy, not with formality, but with something deeper. Clara realized that this gratitude came from a place where food was not guaranteed, where accepting help always came with shame. She sat on the other side of the room, not staring too much, respecting his space. "If you want, you can take a shower later," she said. "There's a clean towel there." Rafael looked up, surprised. "Okay," he replied. When he finished eating, he placed the plate carefully on the table, as if that too were part of a test. Clara smiled slightly. That night, no one made promises, no one told long stories, but Rafael felt something different. For the first time in a very long time, he was not just passing through a place, he was being welcomed. Morning entered the kitchen in silence. Sunlight streamed through the window and fell over the simple table where there was bread, coffee, and a bit of butter. Nothing sophisticated, but enough. Rafael was sitting with his backpack at his feet, as if he were ready to leave at any moment. He ate quickly, small bites, barely lifting his eyes. It was not hunger, it was urgency. The urgency of not taking up too much space, of not bothering anyone, of not giving someone time to change their mind. Clara watched him while preparing her own coffee. She noticed the way he swallowed without savoring, how he wiped his mouth with excessive care, how he stood up before even finishing. "You don't need to rush," she said gently. "Take it easy." Rafael paused for a moment. He nodded, but he kept eating fast. Clara understood. That was not shyness, it was fear. Fear of hearing a "you can go now." Fear of being discarded as soon as the day began. She sat down at the table. "You can stay today," she said, without putting weight on the words. "It's not a problem." Rafael looked up, surprised. "Really? Really?" He took a deep breath, almost imperceptibly, and for the first time that morning, he slowed down. He did not smile, not yet, but something inside him relaxed a little. Breakfast ended without big conversations, without promises, just with a new feeling for Rafael. Maybe he didn't need to run away this time. The school was filled with ordinary sounds, hurried footsteps, voices in the hallways, doors opening and closing. Clara walked alongside the administration, listening attentively. In the small room, there was a table, a few chairs, and a stack of papers. Among them, Rafael's name. The school coordinator spoke carefully, choosing her words. "His record is irregular," she said. "Many transfers, many absences." Clara flipped through the documents.
dates that did not follow a line, incomplete notes, blank periods. He changes addresses a lot, the coordinator continued. Sometimes he disappears for weeks, then he comes back. Clara felt a tightness in her chest. There were no records of indiscipline there, no serious warnings, no comments about bad behavior. There were only interruptions. "And what about his performance?" Clara asked. "When he's present, he keeps up," the coordinator replied. "He's not brilliant, but he understands. He just hasn't had continuity." Clara closed the folder slowly. Nothing in those papers indicated a lack of ability. Nothing spoke of laziness or disinterest. Everything pointed to the same thing: lack of foundation, lack of ground. She looked out the room's window. In the courtyard, some students laughed, others ran. In silence, Clara understood something simple and profound. Rafael did not need to be fixed, he needed to be supported. And in that moment, she knew that offering just one night of shelter was not enough. His story demanded more. The community court was a few streets away from the school. It had no bleachers, no new signage. The ground was marked by cracks and lines faded by time. That was where Professor Andre took Rafael after classes. There was no audience, no loud music, no promise of a bright future. Just training. The professor arrived with a ball under his arm. Rafael was already there, waiting. "Let's start with the basics," Andre said one afternoon. They trained positioning, where to stand, when to move, when to wait. Andre explained patiently. "Basketball isn't just about chasing the ball," he said. "It's about understanding space." Rafael listened attentively. He made mistakes. He corrected them. He learned to read the game, to notice where a teammate needed him before even asking. They trained simple passes, no flashy plays. "Keep the game moving," the professor repeated. Rafael did. He was not a star. He did not draw applause. He did not seek the spotlight. But the game became more organized when he was on the court. The other players began to trust him. They passed the ball knowing it would come back at the right time. "With you, we play better," one of them said one day. Rafael did not answer, but he kept that carefully, because for the first time, someone did not need him to be extraordinary. It was enough for him to be reliable.
Rafael's mornings began to change. Before the sun fully appeared, he was already on his feet. Worn sneakers, backpack on his shoulders, the court still empty. The ball bounced on the cold ground as the day was born. Passes against the wall, repeated shots, mistake after mistake. No audience, no applause. Then came school. Rafael sat in the same place, at the back of the classroom. But now he copied with more attention, asked quiet questions, wrote everything down. At night, at Clara's house, he studied at the kitchen table, books open, notebook carefully organized. He didn't always understand. Sometimes he got frustrated. The pencil stopped in the middle of a sentence. His gaze drifted, but he did not give up. There were difficult days, bad practices, low grades. Rafael sat on the bed and stayed silent, staring at the floor. He did not complain. He did not explode. He swallowed the frustration and tried again the next day. And, little by little, small victories began to appear. A correct pass at the exact moment, an exercise finally understood, a simple compliment from a teacher. "Good job today," someone would say. Nothing grand, but for Rafael, it was everything. He was improving on the court and improving outside of it. Not all at once,
Not in a spectacular way, but day after day, like someone who learns for the first time that effort can also be rewarded. The house was quiet, but the atmosphere was heavy. Dinner was already over, dishes washed, lights dimmed. Rafael was in his room doing his homework when the voices began in the living room. They were not shouts, they were low comments, too careful. "Are you sure about this?" Clara's husband asked, his tone restrained. "We barely know this boy." "I know," Clara replied. "People are talking," said a family member. "They say it's strange, that there might be some intention behind it." Clara took a deep breath. She had heard that before. Not exactly those words, but that fear disguised as prudence. "What intention?" she asked, firmly. There was an uncomfortable silence. "We're just worried," they insisted. "These days you can't trust everyone." Clara stood up slowly. She did not raise her voice. She did not give a speech. "He is a boy," she said simply. "A boy who needed help." No one answered right away. "If that makes you uncomfortable, the problem isn't him. It's the way we look at those who come from outside." She sat back down. On the other side of the wall, Rafael held the pencil tightly. He didn't hear every word, but he understood enough. He felt the old fear rise in his chest, the fear of being the problem, of being the mistake. Clara opened the bedroom door. "It's okay," she said, looking straight at him. "You're staying." There was no long explanation, no promise, just certainty. And that night, Rafael fell asleep, knowing that someone had chosen to stand by his side, even when it was easier to step back. The classroom was the same as always, the same desks, the same board, the low murmur of conversations before class began. Rafael came in and sat in the back, near the window. Nothing had changed on the outside, but on the inside, something was different. When the teacher began explaining the lesson, Rafael opened his notebook more calmly. He took notes from the very beginning. He paid attention to the details. At one point, the teacher asked a question. Silence took over the room. Rafael felt his heart race. He knew the answer. Not completely, but enough. He raised his hand slowly. The gesture was small, almost shy. "You can speak," the teacher said, surprised. Rafael answered. His voice came out low but steady. It wasn't perfect, but it was correct. The teacher nodded. "That's right." Rafael lowered his hand and looked back at his notebook. He didn't smile, he didn't celebrate, but he stayed. Throughout the class, he asked another question, then another. He didn't stand out, he didn't become an example, but he didn't disappear. And for him, that was already enormous. For the first time, Rafael was not waiting to be told to leave. He wasn't counting the minutes to get out. He was there, and on that simple day, staying was already a victory. The room was too bright. White walls, hard chairs, a clock making noise. Clara and Rafael sat side by side. They could not touch each other. They could not decide anything there. On the other side of the table, a social worker flipped through documents, papers, stamps, folders. Rafael's life was there, reduced to stapled sheets. "Unstable address," the woman read. "Frequent school absences. Legal guardians absent." Each sentence fell like a weight. Rafael kept his eyes down. His hands were sweating. He did not understand every word, but he understood the tone, suspicion. "We need to follow procedures," the social worker said, without raising her voice. It's not personal. Clara took a deep breath. He is studying, she replied. He is training. He is doing well. The woman wrote something on the paper. We need to assess whether this environment is appropriate, she said. His history is concerning. Clara looked at Rafael for a moment. Then she turned back to the social worker. His history doesn't tell the whole story, she said, firmly. He has never had stability. There was a silence. The social worker closed the folder. We will review it, she said. Until then, nothing is guaranteed. Rafael felt the ground shift beneath him. Nothing was guaranteed. As they left the room, the hallway felt too long. Rafael's story had turned into paper, and paper did not show effort. It did not show fear. It did not show determination. Only absence, and that could cost everything.
The court was full that afternoon. The sound of the ball bouncing, voices calling plays, footsteps running. But Rafael was not fully there. Since the meeting at the social services office, something had changed. His body was present, his mind was not. The game began. Rafael received the ball in a simple position, an easy pass. He hesitated for 1 second, but it was enough. The pass came out late, intercepted. "Hey, pay attention!" someone shouted. Rafael nodded without answering. On the next play, he missed again. A pass too short, another too long. Nothing serious, nothing that justified being scolded. But to him, every mistake felt like a threat. He wasn't afraid of losing the game. That wasn't it. The fear was something else. It was losing his place. It was becoming disposable again. It was hearing once more that he didn't work out. Rafael began to play stiffly. He held the ball longer than he should, passed when he didn't need to, stayed still when he should have run. Professor Andre watched from the sideline. He didn't shout. He didn't complain. He just observed. At the end of practice, Rafael left the court without looking at anyone. He sat on the bench, breathing deeply. The ball rolled to his feet. He didn't kick it back. He just stared at it in silence. Because in that moment, the game had stopped being just basketball. It was the fear of losing everything all over again.
The room was dimly lit. The open window let in the distant noise of the street. Rafael was sitting on the bed, his elbows resting on his knees. His gaze was lowered, too quiet for someone who usually tried to explain himself. Clara appeared at the doorway. She did not come in right away. "May I?" she asked softly. Rafael nodded. She sat down on the chair beside the bed. She did not try to fill the silence. A few seconds passed. "Was practice bad?" she asked. Rafael shrugged. "Normal." Clara knew it wasn't. "You're afraid," she said, without accusing. He took a deep breath. "If I mess up," he began, then stopped. Clara did not finish the sentence for him. "If I mess up, they might think I'm not good enough," he finally said. She looked at him carefully, without pity, without correction. "Listen," she said simply. "You don't have to prove anything to stay." Rafael lifted his eyes. She continued in the same tone. "It's not about performance. It's not about results. It's not about a good day or a bad one." Silence. "You're already here," she concluded. Rafael did not respond right away, but something in his body gave way. His shoulders dropped. He leaned his back against the wall, closed his eyes for a moment. Clara stood up. Before leaving, she said only, "Sleep." The door closed gently. Rafael stayed there, alone, but for the first time in days, without feeling that he needed to defend himself from anyone. Full gym. Bleachers vibrating with voices, footsteps, expectations. The sound of the ball bouncing echoes like a racing heart. Rafael is on the bench. Simple uniform, hands resting on his knees, breathing controlled, not from anxiety, but from focus. The score is tight. The game is unstable. The team is losing rhythm. Coach Andre watches the court. Then he looks at Rafael. There is no speech, just a nod of the head. Rafael stands up. When he steps onto the court, there is no applause, no boos, almost no one notices. He takes his position. First play. He doesn't shoot. He makes a safe pass. Second play. He closes a space no one saw. The opponent hesitates. Third play. He takes a step back at the right moment, stops a drive. The game begins to organize itself around him. Rafael speaks little, points, moves, holds the rhythm. When he receives the ball wide open, he could take the shot, but he sees a teammate in a better position. Pass, basket. The score turns. In the stands, Clara watches in silence. She doesn't smile, she doesn't cry, she simply breathes in relief, like someone watching something fragile remain whole. In the final minutes, Rafael makes a mistake. The ball slips away. The opponent scores. He lowers his head for a second, then lifts it, asks for the ball again. Not to redeem himself, but to continue. The game ends. A narrow victory. No exaggerated celebration, no camera focused on him. But the team gathers, and someone taps his shoulder. Rafael smiles, small, contained. It's not a smile of conquest, it's a smile of belonging. Cut to the scoreboard fading out. Rafael leaves the court the way he entered. Discreet.
Boom. Last seconds. The scoreboard shows the smallest possible difference. The ball reaches Rafael. The gym holds its breath. He is open. The shot is possible. The spotlight would be his. For a moment, everything he has been weighs on him. The fear of failing, the fear of losing, the fear of taking up too much space. Then he sees. A teammate cuts along the side. Better angle, lower risk. Rafael doesn't force it. He passes. The ball travels cleanly, without desperation, without vanity. Shot. Basket. The buzzer sounds immediately. Game over. Victory. The team explodes, hugs, shouts. They jump around. Rafael stands still for a second. Then he smiles. It's not restrained. It's not defensive. It's not a smile asking for permission. It's the first time he smiles without guilt for being there. The table is set simply. Rice, beans, something made in a hurry but with care. Clara's children talk at the same time. They argue about the game. They mimic exaggerated moves. They laugh at themselves. Rafael watches at first, as he always has, but something has changed. He joins the conversation, corrects a detail, tells how the last play went, and then he laughs out loud, without holding back, without controlling the volume, without looking around to see if he's bothering anyone. Clara pauses for a moment, pretending to adjust the cutlery. She watches. It's not the laugh of someone who has won a championship. It's the laugh of someone who finally feels safe. The camera slowly pulls back. The house is not perfect. The future is not settled. Nothing there is guaranteed. But at that table, Rafael is not just passing through. He is home.
The campus is vast, tall trees, people coming and going, each at their own pace. Rafael walks among them. The backpack is now a little heavier. Books, notebooks, a basketball strapped by a side handle. He doesn't draw attention, doesn't pose, doesn't look like someone victorious. He is just another student. A poster announces university sports activities. Another speaks about academic scholarships. Rafael passes by them without stopping. The scholarship he received is not a prize. It's not a promise of glory. It is a concrete chance to continue studying, to continue playing, to continue learning to occupy space without fear. He crosses the courtyard. The sound of a court in the distance, ball bouncing, sneakers squeaking on the floor. Rafael glances for a second, takes a deep breath, moves forward. The camera stays on the campus as he walks away. It is not the end of the story. It is the confirmation of something simple and rare. The future, for him, is no longer a distant dream, but has become a possible path.
Some stories are not about extraordinary talents. They're about someone who finally had a place to belong.
If you enjoy stories that touch the heart, provoke reflection, and stay with you even after the video ends, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach more people. If this video resonated with you, like it and share it with someone who might need to hear this story. See you next time.